Call a meeting to order of the Grafton Planning Board, Monday, May 6th, 2024. We're doing this hybrid with Zoom. Roll call.
All right. Mr. Davidson.
Present.
Mr. Robbins.
Present.
I am here. Mr. Venkatraman.
Present.
And Mr. Hassinger.
I'm here.
And then staff present, we have in the room Miss Coughlin. I realized I started to speak too fast.
Here.
And then we have associate member Miss Bresnahan.
Here.
Do we have anybody else online?
Thank you.
The two stages over here.
Okay, all right, well, we're all set then. Well, our first order of business is, as always, public input. At this point, if someone has something to talk to us about, which is within our purview, that is not otherwise on the agenda, this is the time, either out on the web or here. Is there anyone? Apparently not. Action items, the ridings, subdivision, approval of bond. Do we have this was, the bond needed to be corrected?
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Chair. So, Vice Chair Dave caught a little error in the bond document. They had stated Libby Lane twice, but the bond has since been corrected, triple checked, and should be good to go. There's an email uploaded to the meeting materials, just a confirmation from back in April, on April 16th, that council had reviewed the bond document and didn't find any issues. So this is just an updated. So I'll zoom out so everyone can see. Happy to answer any questions. This is for the riding subdivision section 1 only.
Questions, comments on this? Apparently not. Anybody? Okay.
Move the board approve the bond, the bond.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none.
Mr. Davidson.
Aye.
Mr. Robbins.
Aye.
I vote aye. Mr. Venkatraman.
Aye.
And Mr. Hassinger.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on. Approval not required under subdivision control, A&R 2024-04, 150 Old Westboro Road.
So, I believe somebody, the applicant or representative was going to be present. They confirmed that, but I don't think.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Come to any microphone.
Yeah, either there or over here.
So Rob Boyd, B&R Survey, I did the plan. It's just a simple lot line alteration between two existing developed lots. One party was acquiring 10-foot strip of land to solve a zoning setback issue. So resulting lots were all conforming with zoning. Pretty straightforward.
Just to add, when I reviewed the plan, Natalia did a cursory review at the beginning while I was away on vacation, and then I followed up with some additional comments. All of those requests have been met per subdivision regs. And yeah, we didn't see any other outstanding concerns. Happy to answer any questions that the board may have, but this is pretty straightforward. This is the sliver here.
Yeah, a little 10-foot
Yeah.
strip of land, parcel B. I believe there was a parcel A previously conveyed out, so we labeled it up as parcel B.
Trying to look at this on a little computer screen
Sorry.
that doesn't scroll around real well. Took me a little while to find parcel B.
There you go.
'Cause the letters are. Any discussion, any questions, anybody have any issues?
I move that the board finds approval is not required and direct staff to do the appropriate documentation.
Second.
Moved in second. Is there discussion? Hearing none.
Mr. Davidson.
Aye.
Mr. Robbins.
Aye.
I vote aye. Mr. Venkatraman.
Aye.
And Mr. Hassinger.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Okay.
So I'll get on that documentation and I'll let you know when it's ready. It should
Give
be
me
ready
an
by tomorrow.
email when it's all set to pick up.
Yes. Yep.
Thank you, appreciate
Have a
it.
good one.
Okay, that brings us to, UPS slash Prologis
Yes.
joint kickoff meeting logistics.
Sure. So there's no materials in the meeting materials because it's just a verbal update from myself. We've been going back and forth trying to coordinate with the Shrewsbury Planning Board. Thank you, everybody, for responding to that doodle poll promptly. It's looking like the 10th will be the date at 7 o'clock for our first meeting, which will be joint with the Shrewsbury Planning Board. The location is going to be the Shrewsbury Selectmen Room at their town hall because it is big enough to accommodate the number of folks that we're anticipating to come. And I've already coordinated with GCTV, who said that it shouldn't be a problem to get the recording set up and put up online for us. Mr. DeToma works very closely with Shrewsbury on many projects, and he relayed to me that it shouldn't be an issue.
Are we gonna be on Zoom?
Yes, it's going to be
a
hybrid.
meeting?
Yes, it's going to be hybrid, and the building is completely accessible as well.
Yeah, no, I know the room.
Yeah.
Two questions on that. Number one, is it going to be at 7 p.m. or a different time?
The council for the applicants at 7 p.m. today.
Okay. Because my other question is, we have on our schedule that we approved a planning board regular for Grafton on
Right.
that date.
Right, we have a regularly scheduled meeting, but we have nothing on that agenda as of yet. So we do have actually we will have a continuance, but we can I can coordinate with Natalia Logistics for meeting after we have a joint hearing with the town of Shrewsbury. Or we can, I'm open to suggestions, posting
That's,
before.
Yeah, my current opinion, I think we can take it after this offline with you directly. But my current thinking is, it might make sense to make the 10th be just that as far as our agenda goes, and then having if we can push it out to a different meeting entirely, that we have already scheduled, great. If not, like if there's an A&R or something else that needs more, timing attention, we can have an ad hoc meeting on a different day or a different week.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll coordinate to make sure that, so just UPS on that day,
so it's Friday, the tenth?
Monday.
Monday,
June 10th.
which is our
June 10th.
June, sorry.
Ah, that makes it a little easier.
June 10th.
Sorry,
And,
I should have confirmed that. Yeah, which is a regularly scheduled meetings board anyway, so.
Yeah, right, we have,
Right.
that is our regular meeting date. And I'll just sort of, reiterate that if we can make it just for this one matter of business,
Yes, yep.
that would be easier logistically.
Sure. The only projects that we're anticipating could potentially fall on this date would be some of the larger scale ones, but the amount of coordination and peer reviews that are required for those might take longer than June 10th. So.
Yep.
And it's always the items on our agenda that, like I said, have the timing attached to them, like A&Rs and other things that
Yeah.
we may not be able to push to a different meeting.
Yeah, I'll make sure if anybody does come in with any inquiries that I notify them accordingly. Absolutely.
Okay, and is that all of the logistics for that?
That is it for now. I will just confirm that this meeting it's going to be just an introductory meeting to the project, just, boards to ask, some high level questions, hear the public's feedback on the project, and then from there, we're going to split into our regular typical review schedule separately. So it's just one joint meeting with the first meeting joint, and then the rest will be as we normally do them.
There's a key terminology piece here for us to recognize is it a joint meeting where just introducing it to us, or is it a joint hearing?
It's a hearing. Sorry, it's a hearing.
'Cause
Yeah.
It has just different connotations and things that people can expect out of that.
Yeah, it's a joint hearing. But it will be very high level.
It's very rare that I ever recall any Grafton board or committee holding a meeting outside of the town.
Yeah, the applicant was, asking for this very, very early on, trying to do some coordination, trying to streamline it on their end, and I relayed concerns that you're sharing now, but I think process wise, it ended up kind of being the best way to proceed, at least for the first meeting, hearing, first hearing.
So be it. Alrighty, that was,
Yeah, I don't have, in terms of logistics, that's about it. They're planning on filing this week, so I told them that they need to get their materials in by the 14th to meet that deadline for the 10th.
One thing that might be a good idea, but I don't know how that could work logistically at all, is if we had even if we're holding it in that room and it's a remote potential meeting, if we have a designated town meeting room set up where residents can go instead of going to Shrewsbury, if they don't have access to technology at home. Basically thinking like we did years ago with the town meeting before, but have like in this room, we have it open for residents that don't want to go in person to there, but can't, for whatever reason, do it on Zoom at home. Have the ability to
Just have like an overflow room.
like have it
Here.
in Grafton. I wouldn't even necessarily call it overflow, but in Grafton room where residents could also go, but that logistically could be even worse. I don't know.
Yeah, I just have concerns about if folks want to participate in the discussion and they can't.
Yeah.
but if they can't get up there, they can't participate.
Maybe we can.
I'm not really happy about it. But we'll see.
I can see.
I hope that we have complete filing before,
Yes.
sufficiently before, so that I can try to figure out on my little screen. All right. Anything else on this? Anybody? All right, then we have a request for comments on 14 Snow Road,
Okay. Sorry, just jotting down.
40B.
So, let me pull up my screen. So this is a 40B, as the chair just mentioned, but we are at the beginning of what a 40B is presented to a community. There is a site walk, and then there is a preliminary determination of eligibility made by EUHLC. And from there, we post the project and give boards and committees an opportunity to comment before they issue the final eligibility letter. So that's where we are now. So I wanted the board to be aware that this is coming for 14 Snow Road. They have submitted their application. It's up on our meeting materials, which I will pull up now. So it's a pretty lengthy packet, but the project, I think folks on this board might be aware, they had come before the select board in early 2023 for an endorsement letter, which they got, and then they have a development agreement signed with the select board. They've, presented evidence of site control, obviously, submitted a full and vetted package. So now we need to make sure that we are providing any comments or concerns that we have within the 30 day comment period, which takes us to roughly the end of May. So I want to make sure that we have a discussion this evening about the project, and if there's any comments that we want to include, I'll make sure to get them to the TA's office and they'll upload them on the website.
Well, with the information I found online, haven't any idea. Because I have virtually zero information about what they're actually gonna do.
It's a,
I know,
Multifamily
I'm
product.
talking about drawings and things like that.
yeah, so at the end, let me go
Yeah,
to,
there's not a lot of detail.
The 3 drawings I found are useless.
yeah, that
So-
was,
So that's a problem as far as asking us for comments. I do have one area of concern, I don't know how it fits into the process, but the intersection
Oh,
of Snow
yes.
Road and Worcester, is historically a problem, traffic-wise. When Stop and Shop was built, the road was widened, making it more difficult, both for left turns from Snow Road in particular, but also for left turns from the street that's almost exactly across, and from the big garage right next to it. They've complained at various hearings over the years to me and to us, well, some of us
Yes.
go back that far. I had people call me asking for traffic lights when, traffic light and so on. So that's, I think, a really serious problem. I think they're talking about adding, we don't have any traffic study, of course, but I'm
right, not yet.
estimating a bit over another 1,000 trips a day, probably, what, 80% coming down to Worcester Street. So I think that's gonna be a significant impact at that intersection. And
Yeah.
I think mitigation, there's gotta be some kind of mitigation at that intersection.
Yeah, absolutely, I'll make sure to include that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
even heading in the other direction, going East Street and then heading toward Shrewsbury, you know, where the train intersection is, that's at the peak times a notoriously bad intersection as well. You know, not that I see there's much we can do to that at the moment, but
Right, but
on
You're saying the railway crossing?
the railway crossing, yes.
Well, they have gates there now, don't they?
No, the one that connects right at the corner of East Street and
I'm thinking.
Yeah, you're talking about going up the other way.
yes,
Going up Snow Road away from Worcester Street, you'll end up on East Street,
And
and
then
if
taking
you
the
turn
left
left
toward-
there, you end up at the railroad crossing.
Well, you have a light, that's where the light is, right?
yeah.
To at least help you make a left turn.
Yeah.
But that's a really problematic place also.
Yeah,
I'm not sure that you're gonna have enough added traffic from this.
It probably will not change the level of service of that intersection.
No, but it could very well affect. I don't know what the level of service is now at Snow and Worcester.
Yeah.
The traffic study that they have yet to perform, because they haven't even submitted, applied for the comprehensive permit.
Right.
But that will clearly be a major factor.
Yes.
I will note that in the agreement, the LIP agreement with the select board, they have committed to adding a right turn lane at Snow Road to facilitate turning right from Snow Road onto Worcester Street, which will have some positive impact, but not likely to be an impact on the most serious problem we anticipate
And-
there.
And that's
So that
that's
would
our-
be a
that-
key
yeah.
issue.
Even right turns are still problematic, considering people come into CVS, take the right, try to sneak up Snow, or
Yep.
or go past at any
Yeah,
given
so
point.
the advantage of that right turn lane is if you're waiting for someone to turn left on Worcester Street, you're not stuck behind them.
Yes.
So it will be interesting to see the traffic impact study to see whether that's a significant impact, but
Yeah.
there was a couple of points that they had negotiated the LIP agreement with the select board on that catch my eye. That's one, and the other one is they're adding sidewalks along Snow Road.
yes,
It'll,
let me try and see what I can.
I suppose that the ZBA should insist on a peer review of the traffic study particularly with input about the long-standing concerns about that whole, both the Snow Road side and the other side.
Yes, that's very definitely an issue the ZBA needs to pay attention to.
Yeah.
Other things, just from our perspective as a planning board, at this stage of the game, it's just sort of, that's probably the most notable issue that we should comment on.
Oh, you have any information?
It doesn't, that probably doesn't affect EOHLC's approval, issuing the preliminary approval, but, good to get on their radar.
Right. The EUHLC will be primarily concerned with, their decision criteria. It's what's listed in the guidelines, 760 CMR 56.04, where they basically focus on these core bullets that I'm going to read off to you. So if the project appears generally eligible under the requirements of the subsidy program, which if they've been approved for their preliminary, one can surmise that they're on track there. Second is that the site of the proposed project is generally appropriate for residential development, taking into consideration the information that's provided by the municipality. And also what factors into that is efforts that the town has been making to advance affordable housing needs and how our zoning accommodates affordable housing. The next is the conceptual plan. The conceptual project design is generally appropriate for the site on which it's located, taking into consideration factors that include proposed use, building massing, topography, environmental resources, etc. So those types of specifics.
And we don't have any information on that, like building massing.
They're in the application, closer to the end, there's elevations, and floor plans, and there's some
don't think
renderings
I
in
saw
there as
that.
well. Let me, I'll scroll down.
And I don't have the measurements to say if this is a concern, but just to say it out loud as well. The offset from Maxwell Drive for the entrance, if it is too close, it could be an overall issue considering how we typically structure our subdivision rules.
Yeah. So let me, I'm still have a few more bullets that I want to read off, but I want to pull, so there's the floor plans, elevations. Linger there for a second. There's going to be several larger buildings as well as townhouses proposed. Okay, so that's where, let me see if I can get a bigger rendering of the whole. Okay. Should be right there, but so just continuing on, that the proposed project appears financially feasible within the housing market in which it'll be situated. That the initial pro forma, which is included, has been reviewed, including certain criteria such as a land valuation determination consistent with state guidelines, and just proof that it's financially feasible overall. And then the last two bullets are that they meet the general eligibility standards of the housing program, for which they will be applying, and then that they have site control, which we already established that they do. So the minimum requirements based on the application are there, but I encourage the board, in addition to the comments that we've discussed now about traffic and problems with existing intersections, to kind of bear in mind those considerations, because those are what we're going to need to provide feedback on. And I'm happy to send that list out as well, and I'm sure we'll be coordinating, and we can get I can just act as a clearinghouse for comments and compile a final letter and send that to the TA's office.
Okay, I just found what you're talking about the drawings and whatnot. Remember that I was trying to get into this right when it was just surfacing and getting put up, and I didn't find this. I found, for some reason, maybe the good stuff was put up after I,
It's yeah, it's right. It's deep in there at the end of the application, which isn't ideal. I know, but and I also there in the development agreement. There's a couple of other things that I just to Dave's point before. Oh my gosh, this application is so large. Bear with me. There's so many.
Stuff in there.
There's so many things. Yeah. Because there is, I think, a couple of, okay, here we go.
Yeah,
So the
there.
developer agreed to, upon signing the agreement, yes, to, as was mentioned, extend the sidewalk from Worcester Street, remove fourth story from the two buildings located nearest to Snow Road, buildings A and B, and I'll pull up the plan in a second, again. Public use permitted of the walking trails to be built at the project. A playground at the project, $300,000 in donations after final occupancy to the town to be used as the select board sees fit. And then they also agreed to install a 75-foot right-hand turn lane at the intersection of Snow and Worcester Street as shown on the turning lane plan. That's in exhibit C, which I can bring up. This is exhibit C.
That's actually the sidewalk plan.
Oh, is it?
I didn't catch what she said there was in a back site.
And that shows the two buildings that are being reduced from 4 to 3 stories.
Yep.
So
just gonna
exhibit A
pull
was
up
the
all
turning
these.
lane.
Yeah. The last exhibit.
Yeah.
There we go. So there was, consideration made at the beginning, when this was reviewed by the select board. But, we'll reiterate in our letter. But ideally, I would like to have everyone's comments by the end of the week so that I can draft a letter, and get that in, because we want to make sure we voice our concerns soon.
An observation I have about this is that traffic considerations aside, this is from a number of respects an attractive location for a development like this. It's rental housing, very close, very convenient to shopping and other services. So it's
Right.
I think folks who live there can walk to CVS and Stop and Shop, and quite a few other things. So from the perspective of one of our long-term visions for Grafton of developing compact, walkable, mixed-use neighborhoods, this fits right in. We see that in the 2001 master plan mention of that concept. We're trying to further develop those concepts in the master plan update. The hard question about that kind of development is where in Grafton can we do it? And this is one of the more promising locations for something like that. It's also across the street from existing housing. The housing authority right across the street there on Snow Road, and kind of down Worcester Street away in Forest Lane, there is another housing authority. So we have this kind of development, although not at this scale. This is a larger scale, and
Certainly.
that's gonna be cause for some concern. And again, this is the scale that the developer has proposed.
Right.
Once this project gets into the ZBA, it may very well be scaled back. That often happens with 40B projects with the ZBA.
Right.
So
Right.
this
They go
is
through
an initial
negotiations.
proposal, and kind of in principle, to me at least, it fits there. Doesn't that doesn't what's the word? That doesn't diminish the concern about traffic at Snow Road and Worcester Street.
Right.
That's a tough one.
Right.
what does this contribute to our target for 40B?
So I recently submitted requests for inclusion for the two 40B projects that were approved a few months ago. So 59 Pleasant and 116 Upton. So I haven't gotten a final SHI count yet, but I think we'd be, yes,
Well,
very
I'm saying how many
poised to
units?
be. I don't want to say for sure,
How,
but I
how
think
many units this project?
this is 268.
206, this would add 268 to the SHI.
Yes.
Okay, cause
So we
there's
should-
all these rules, that, you know, there's 25 and 20 and, if it's 20 then and, but if it's rental then,
Right, all of
and-
it
and
counts.
this-
Yep.
Right,
it's a little
this-
hard to,
Yeah, this project is designed to add 268 to the SHI
okay,
One,
that's good,
you can
at
finish
the,
that.
at the,
Now,
desi- at the proposed capacity.
yeah, yeah, as we're going now. The one other thing is, I don't remember the exact schedule that the, WRTA bus uses, but when we approved Stop and Shop a million years ago, I, insisted on some sort of an okay to have a stop. I think it was in their parking lot. And if they're stopping there, that would be a plus.
Yes. Yes, I think in their application materials, they do mention,
Oh, did they?
yeah, the WRTA Route B, which runs from Walmart and by 146 up through Grafton to the T station. And it runs like roughly every hour in the morning and the afternoon.
Just about, yeah.
It's limited service, but it's what we have.
Yeah.
And it's more than nothing.
Right.
Yeah, you could, I was looking at this and not too long ago, you could, if you really were motivated, get into Worcester from this. Unfortunately, that means riding the bus down to Walmart in Sutton. There's another bus that runs from there up to the Millbury shops at Blackstone Valley, and then you can catch a bus line into Worcester from there. So it's
possible, but-
possible, but generally speaking, I would say it's impractical.
Right.
Is that a free ride? You know, they
I
have.
have no idea what it costs.
I
it's
guess on the bus, on the city buses anyway.
Yep. I do have one just thought that is not for EOHLC because it's not going to really matter for them and probably wouldn't even change the ZBA's opinion. But in my own thoughts, Snow Road does not have a very consistent width. There's some spots that are pretty narrow compared to having two cars pass each other. It can happen, but if one car's going a little faster, you may not have the best thing. And there's certain spots also don't have the best sight lines for pulling out for properties that are along there or the side roads. So that might get addressed when they're going through and trying to put in the sidewalks like was mentioned. But at the very least, it's something that I think the TA's office, select board, and DPW probably need to keep in their mind. They might need to do some sightline improvements or road widening to make this be useful. Because it's not striped the whole way through either.
Okay.
Okay? We done with this?
All right. Thank
That
you.
brings us to hearings. Continued hearing for Tufts, PRR 2024-01 at 55 Willard Street. How we doing?
So I believe there's representatives here from Tufts to speak to this, but I will just do a really brief overview. So as the board is aware, Tufts has continued. They were waiting on their peer review. Their peer review came back with no issues. When I had did my original analysis, I also found no outstanding issues, just something to bear in mind that, we are on a timeline to get this approved and the decision drafted. So by the end of May, we need to get that organized, which seems like we won't have an issue because now that we know from an engineering, stormwater perspective, et cetera, we're good to go. Yeah, just, I think, obviously I'll turn it over to the applicant in a second, but other than that, I did have some general comments just about, it's not, it is tangentially related, but not as directly, but, we are waiting on, an updated, annual parking and traffic demand management report, as well as, an updated stormwater maintenance plan certification from Tufts. They did verify to me that they will be sending that information soon, which we'll need to approve later. And also I just continue to reiterate, you know, with the growth and the changes that Tufts is experiencing, to make sure that the master plan, if it's time to amend the master plan, which was last amended in 2021, that, you know, we make sure that's on their radar as well. But in terms of this project, you know, it's a, rounds rooms in an existing parking lot, not, you know, dimensional standards are in compliance. We know the parking, there's a surplus of parking, so that shouldn't affect, any parking needs. I verified with the building inspector that, he would have no issues with that, and, yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I think we'll give it, the folks from Tufts a chance to speak to any, outlying things that they want to discuss.
Karen, I just have to leave the room, I think, because my husband works at Tufts.
Okay.
So I don't think we probably have a lot to add to the summary that you just gave, but I'll,
Yeah, I think we talked about it.
yeah.
You have to identify yourself.
Oh, sorry, I forgot, because it wasn't that long ago we were here. Sorry. Alistair Cribb, Dean at Tufts University.
Ruthie Bennett, Senior Director of Capital Programs for Tufts University.
Greg O'Connor, GJO Associates Architects.
One thing that, which I'm sure Greg, you're just about to speak to, is the minor modification to the modular units that you're ordering. So just give an overview of that. That'd be great. Thank you.
So what has happened in the last week, our vendor supplying the modular to us informed us that there's gonna be a dimensional change in the modular that we will be receiving. It is the same square footage as what we applied for. It still fits within the same 6 parking spaces. It's actually a little narrower and a little longer than the original one. It actually covers less green space than the previous one, because what's happened with the new plan, which I believe you guys received today, we had this long side before encroaching up onto the grass, and what has happened since this unit got narrower, we actually don't encroach on the grass there now. We encroach a little on the end, so there's far less green space that we're actually taking with this. So it's kind of a win-win for us. It still fit, and it's more in the parking lot than it used to be. If anybody has any questions?
To confirm, that's Graves Engineering has not reviewed this revised plan. Is that accurate?
They didn't. They did not get a chance to review this, but it's with such a minor. It's really not necessary.
Just making sure.
Yeah. No, good question. And it's not changing any. You know, it's not taking it up any more parking spaces. You know, it's forwarding more sustainable stormwater practices, etc. So we, you know, I advise to just speak to it briefly this evening and just let the board know so we can make a finding, but no cause for concern from planning's perspective.
Yeah, I have no issues, no questions.
I'm just a little confused, trying to look at the drawing to tell whether what we've got here is the revised one, because on our agenda, it says March 29th,
So
and the revision date, there's only one revision, initial issue, I don't know when, but then one, 24/3/29, and this is.
So exhibit 2's date is, I'll pull up, so this is I'm pulling up, the previous site plan that was submitted.
Yes.
So the date in the, on that plan set was March 8th, 2024.
Yeah,
Yes.
And then the revision date that was on this plan set, that I used when I was titling the exhibit was
so,
there we are, was March 29th. So the new trailer layout, it's
I'm-
designated there.
Okay.
This was the original one underneath.
Okay.
Yep.
It just, this is May, and,
Yeah,
that's
I
March.
think- I think our
That's a
engineer
little confusing.
put the wrong date on it. He did redate it, but I think he
He wrote March instead of May.
put March instead of May when he put his date on there.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, so
And I
I
also
did notice that earlier, and I said, "Huh," but I mean,
At least we got the revision date on.
yeah,
It-
it's on there.
it's a date that's newer than the prior plan. That's really in the end good
Logically,
enough.
we're checking that box out.
What I've got here is what you're talking about, is what I'm
Yes.
Yes, yes, and yeah, I did upload that.
yeah, that one that
revision
says
piece
March
of it.
29th, it matches that. The older one,
How it had printed out.
the trailer extended quite a bit farther down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything more anybody with questions? Anybody out there with questions, either on the internet or in the room? Or comments?
No, we have no
Okay.
hands raised
Now,
on Zoom. No hands raised on Zoom
No.
or in the room.
Now, do we need to get some of what you were talking about before we close the hearing? You talked about needing some.
No.
No, so we could close the hearing.
So moved.
It was just an
This is
FYI, really.
Technically, it's a public meeting, not a hearing,
Still,
but presumably we can close the public meeting and direct staff to draft a decision.
Yes.
Is
That,
is
that was my motion.
I understand that's the motion.
Yes.
moved and seconded, whether we need it or not. Roll call.
All right. Mr. Davidson.
Aye.
Mr. Robbins.
Aye.
I vote aye. Mr. Veckatraman.
Aye.
And Mr. Hassinger.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. You included the draft.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was included. Everything was included.
Good. That's,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
good luck.
Yes, yes, so I'll start drafting.
This is gonna have a read.
We'll have it for approval. Next one.
This is a brand new
Let's go.
public
Thank
hearing.
you.
Go in the back.
So, it's the beginning.
Yep.
Public hearing.
All right.
Alrighty. You all set?
All set.
Time for the 5 Millennium Drive,
Yes.
FA 2024-01.
All right. Pursuant to sections 1.3.3 and 13.7 of the Town of Grafton zoning bylaw, the planning board will hold a public hearing on Monday, May 6, 2024, commencing at 7:30 p.m. to consider an application for a plan approval for construction of a multifamily transit-oriented residential development consisting of 233 residential units, parking garages, areas, amenities, and supporting site features and infrastructure on property located at 5 to 9 Millennium Drive, as shown as Grafton Assessors Map 5, lots 1.h and 1.I. Said property is located in an office light industrial OLI and the North Grafton Transit Village Overlay NGTVOD zoning district. The applicant is Claremont Grafton LLC by Mark Barbowski and Christopher Alphin, Blattman, Barbowski, Haverty, and Silverstein LLC, and the owner is Claremont Grafton LLC. A copy of the application plan is available for public inspection at the planning department during regular business hours or on the Town of Grafton website at www.grafton-ma.gov on the planning department development projects webpage.
Okay, so I'll just do a really quick intro, then I'll turn it over. As many members of the board know, 5 Millennium Drive is finally before us, which is an exciting thing. The project is 233 units with associated detached parking, surface parking, private resident amenities, and various improvements to grading and drainage, and also a proposed ramp that will lead to the MBTA commuter rail station, which abuts the property to the south. The site is 10.7 acres, and will need to be almost completely stabilized by segmental block retaining walls due to grade and elevation changes. As of today, we did receive our peer review quote, but we do not have peer review currently. So that will be available in the future. I did a review, which I am not going to go into because it's long and everyone should have had an opportunity to read that. I'm happy to answer any specific questions, but I think the most effective use of our time would be to turn it over to the applicant to introduce the project, and then we can go from there. Alrighty.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening. Introduce yourselves.
I will. Mark Bobrowski, counsel for the applicant. My office is in Damon Mill Square in Concord. Nice to see you again. Haven't seen you since town meeting. We're delighted to be here for the plan approval process now under Chapter 40R. This is a equivalent of site plan approval, so it's a simple majority vote of the board, and the rules and regulations would be those that are set forth in the bylaw that town meeting adopted back in the fall. I'm here with Bill Lovett from Claremont, Matt Trider from Claremont, Phil Cordero from Allen and Major, our engineer. I'm going to let Bill take it over and give you a brief overview of the project, and then Phil will go into some more civil-related issues from an engineering perspective. Then we'll come back and what we'd like really to do is set up a peer review schedule going forward. We're in with civil. I believe we're in with traffic. So I know peer review is tough to prod these days because it's very busy out there, but we'd like to try to set up a schedule that we can all live with. So without more, I'll give it to Bill.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening, Bill Lovett from Claremont Companies. Great to see everyone. Thank you for your time this evening, and thanks to the staff over the last few months who's been working diligently with us to get us to the point where we are tonight. So just very briefly, a few refamiliarizations with the project. Again, 5 Millennium Drive, it's still a 2-building project. We did potentially, from the last version of this plan that you saw, flip the 2 buildings. The reason that we did that was we moved the entry drive to the eastern portion of the property rather than the western portion of the property. What we had heard, and as I believe the board knows, this is a ledge site. There's a lot of change in elevation, as Mark and Fiona both alluded to. In order to try to mitigate some of the effects of that ledge, we've done a few things. One of which was originally we worked with Primary Colors and our neighbor immediately to the west. We purchased some additional land from the ownership there in order to, again, help us with the logistics on the site. After further review and further work with temporary site contractors and engineering, including Allen and Major, we decided to move the property entrance to, again, as I mentioned, the east side, which will allow us to keep the elevation a little bit higher. We have more retaining walls, but a little bit less blasting, which we heard again from the board was an important component. So with that, again, we now the front door of the project is going to be on the building to the east rather than the building to the west as it was previously shown. Otherwise, it's still 5 stories, surface parked, etc. Another important just update is with regard to the design of the ramp and our coordination with the MBTA. We have been in communication with the MBTA with regard to a licensing agreement. So that application is about to go in. And what that will allow us to do is to physically work as a work easement in the MBTA owned property. But then again, once the project's hopefully completed, then we would have a licensing agreement in order to maintain and utilize the path, because we know, that's obviously an important component for the town and for ourselves of the project. Otherwise, we are going to be in front of the Conservation Commission tomorrow night. Again, to the east of the property, there are some within the property, there are some wetlands. So that hearing begins tomorrow night. And then we are working with SCB Consulting on the affordable housing component of the project as well. They will be our lottery agent, and they're working with us on distribution or confirming distribution of the affordable units, etc. So again, very high level. I'll leave the technical stuff to Alan and Major, but again, happy to answer any questions now or after Alan and Major has had a chance to speak. I'll take my cue.
Thank you. For the record, Phil Cordero from Allen and Major Associates, having a place of principal business address at 10 Main Street in Lakeville, where I run the office with a team of engineers. So happy to meet with the board this evening. I'd like to just go through the details of the application. I'm sure the board's very familiar with it, as Bill and Mark had pointed out. It's been under discussion for a while. So I'll talk about some of the finer points of it, stop me anywhere along the line, and then we'll take it as in-depth as this board would like to go this evening. And then as Mark alluded to, we look forward to working with Graves Engineering as your town's peer review consultant to work with them and really iron out sort of the behind-the-scenes tinkering on the engineering, if that's fine with the board. Great. So site plan, again, as referenced, just to remind the board, the land that we have, the 10.7 acres of land, Millennium Drive is on the north side of the sheet, vacant land to the north of that, primary colors and industrial manufacturing use to the west, the MBTA to the south, plan south, and then the bordering vegetative wetlands that we have on the property is to the east. We have the application into the Conservation Commission. We already have the wetlands determined under an ORAD, so we will simply be permitting with them the notice of intent. Two buildings centered in the middle of the site, intentionally done to make sure we can have a bracketed courtyard space for the activity center of the site. So as you enter into the property, as Bill mentioned, the entrance is on the easterly portion of the site. Your ability to come into the site, having a sense of arrival through an elongated roadway. Now, the purpose of the elongated roadway, as Bill mentioned, is to give us running room to get that grade up and minimize the amount of earthwork we need to take out of the site. But what we can do with that is really create that sense of welcoming, a divided boulevard roadway with landscaping on both sides of it. It's well lit. It brings the residents into the site. It brings them to the main amenity center, the clubhouse area, where they can stop, get the mail, package delivery, etc., or continue on to their particular parking spaces, non-assigned, but parking spaces around the remainder of the site, again, on the outside perimeter. And then all of the activity, a to-be-programmed pool center, gathering center, fire pits, sitting areas, contemplation areas, in between the two buildings. On the perimeter, closer to primary colors, we'll have a dog park. We'll also have some other amenity space to be programmed out there as we work through the site design. That will get further and further refined. The site is challenging from a perspective of topography. With 10.7 acres, it may sound like we have a lot of land area to work with. Unfortunately, because the site has significant grade, the high point of the site is approximately here, and it's at about 482 by elevation. Our wetlands, by comparison, about 400, Millennium Drive about 420. So there's a lot of grade change. It's basically hillside slopes in all direction, and what our job is we do need to bring that down to allow for this terrace development to take place and make sure we meet all of the requirements of the overlay district, of the stormwater management bylaw, of the notice of intent, of conservation, and of Massachusetts stormwater standards. So I'll simplify that by saying we do. We'll want you to test us on that. We'll have Graves Engineering test us on that, of course. But everything that's in front of you is based in accordance with the overlay and all of the requirements of everything that I just outlined. Surface parked, we have 383 parking spaces, of which 376 are required. Some of them will be located in detached garages that will be around the perimeter of the property. It's a bit of an amenity to some of the residents that choose to have that enclosed space. We have the site fully landscaped. As you can see along the perimeter, we'll have site landscaping along the inside. Again, as part of that amenity package, as part of that welcoming approach to make sure it's attractive to the residents and visitors. All of that will be very drought tolerant. It'll be based on native species. It's designed so it has color throughout the year. So it's a mix of evergreens, a mix of deciduous, a mix of shrubbery, a mix of ground cover, as one would expect of a development of this quality. As Bill mentioned, in terms of the infrastructure of the site, in order for us to lower the site, we're basically going to be manufacturing about 86,000 yards of cut on site, and about 65,000 of that will be reused. That will mean about 20,000 yards of material will be removed from the site. So what will be put in place here is obviously a very extensively designed earthwork program for blasting of the ledge, for hammering of the ledge, for removal of the material for the site. In some areas of the site, that cut may average about 40 feet at the highest point, and that will be then filled about 20 to 30 feet on some of the lower sections, so the outer perimeter of the site. In order to work within the boundaries of the site that we have, as Bill mentioned, we will have retaining walls that essentially wrap around the entirety of the site. So the easterly portion will be what's called a fill wall, so the natural grade will be lower than the site. It'll be a fill wall as we move around the south. As we transfer to the west, this will actually be a cut wall that our development will actually be lower than Primary Colors to the west of us. And then as we continue back around to Millennium Drive, we become a fill wall again where the site will actually be above the roadway. So you'll see faces of walls as you're driving up and down Millennium Drive. What that also allows us to do is in the areas of fill, we have a full and complete stormwater system, which is comprised of deep sump, hooded catch basins, water quality treatment devices, everything that's aligned under your stormwater management bylaw and the state standards. All of our stormwater is located beneath our parking lot. So it's underground infiltration in storm traps, which are essentially concrete vaults, concrete holding tanks. We are recharging a portion of that to the ground. It's limited because of the ledge material, but it is in compliance with all of the documentation. And then the overflow water would then ultimately release into the wetlands through the natural design course. So we do have quite a significant stormwater system on the plans that, I'm sure Graves Engineering, again, will comment upon. We meet all of the requirements of MS4 permitting, phosphorus treatment, total suspended solids treatment. Those are very important as these towns progress and they adopt these municipal standards. We want to make sure that we're reflecting that in all of the details that you're ultimately going to review. In terms of infrastructure for the site from a utility perspective, there is a 12-inch water service in Millennium. We are going to seek connection to that to service the two buildings. There is a gas line in Millennium that we're going to seek gas service from. And we also have a sewer line that connects from Primary Colors through to Millennium that will connect into the service. So all of the municipality-based systems are already in place that we can seek service connections through them, and we'll work with the various departments on finalization of that as we go through this. The other group that we'll work most notably with is your fire department. We have worked to make sure that this site, because it's got the perimeter parking surface, is fully traversable by the tower vehicles that the town would use to service the 5-story buildings that we have. So we do meet all of the NFPA 1 requirements. We do meet all of the 527 CMR 18 Massachusetts amendments, which include ladder clearance, ladder access, internal radii, dimensional access, etc. Obviously, we'll look for comment from the fire department, but we're confident in our ability to meet that for you. But all points of the building will be accessible, as they would like us to do. Not accessible by truck traffic necessarily, just to set that stage, but certainly by staged vehicles. All points of these buildings can be accessed by emergency and firefighting personnel with either hoses or ladders. We'll have hydrants on site to assist them. We'll have fire department control panels located each of the buildings and direct access to the interior of the buildings for alarm panels, etc. The building, not to get into too much of the architecture as a site engineer, but to give some metrics, it's 55 feet in height. It is 5-story with a flat roof. Obviously done to keep the scale of these buildings down and work within the code of the overlay district. And we certainly have some renderings of the building if any of the boards would like to see that. And then lastly, as we get into some of the massing, some of the the design techniques that we used here. We do have a full photometric and lighting plan that was provided in the packages for the board to review. Our lighting is done to make sure it meets minimum safe lighting standards, which is 1/2 foot candle over the entirety of the site. Also to ensure that it is dark sky compliant. So all of our lights are LED. They're focused downward. They're shielded to prevent unwanted glare. They're also shielded to prevent off-site flow of light. So that way we're not affecting our abutters. We have few abutters here given the center of it, but we do need to be cognizant of that dark sky rule, and we do have that in place. And our lighting was done based on an elevation scheme where we have our parking lot lights here, and here we'll use a taller pole, 25 foot, so that way we can illuminate the entirety of the parking area. Where we have lights closer to the building, those will be at a much smaller scale, lower to the ground. We maintain those at about 12 feet. That's where our pedestrians will be walking in and out of the building. We want those light levels to be much lower, and it's a way we can control that dark sky and the light spillover compliance. We also have some bollard lighting, again, very low scale, about 7 feet. It'll illuminate walking paths, again, to make sure we have the safe path through there. And a lot of that will exist as we come down through to the MBTA access path / ramp, which this has been designed to be fully accessible. So it is a ramp-based system in the traditional sense of the word. It'll have railings on both sides, leveling areas, and meet all ADA code requirements that we can walk through with the board, and again, graves. So
Can you show exactly where the ramp is?
I certainly can. So the ramp actually follows, it's the entire length where my pen is. So it actually starts here and comes down. It actually switches back and goes another 2 sections. And then this is a sloped sidewalk to get you down the rest of the way to the parking lot. So as you can imagine by the grades that I'm trying to give you a sense of, we have quite an elevation to make up to get from here to the parking lot. So we needed 7 sections of ramp, which we can lose about 2 feet of grade in each ramp. So it's about 15 feet plus or minus of ramp. And then some additional grade that comes down through the sidewalk to make all those numbers work, sir.
Yeah, where that's located, it probably would not help anybody else, like on the other side of Pine Street, when that eventually gets developed. Would it maybe be too far around? But for them, they just go down the street.
I'd imagine it'd be too far.
Yeah.
One thing that might be useful if it works out, just to say the thought, is a staircase in addition to the ramp that allows, for people that don't need to go that length down the ramp, they may not want to walk that far, but they could walk stairs. That's just a thought. I don't think I wouldn't call it a requirement for me.
We make them put Fitbits on at the top of the ramp, at the extra steps in. It's a point taken.
Yep.
Talk about it. So I'll stop there. I can keep going in terms of details, but the board may not want to hear it. They may want to hear from your consultant first. So I'll pause and follow your lead.
I don't think I need to hear anything more, but one thing from you at this point is what I'm thinking, but one thought I have is the town's ladder truck, the town calls it Tower 1, it has an abnormal, what I understand to be an abnormally long, overhang beyond its back tires. Mm-hmm. When they built the new fire station, there was enough of a grade change that it was hitting and having trouble getting into there.
Just coming out onto the road, it wasn't much of a slope, but it comes up when there's a transition like that.
Yeah, I would expect the fire department to be paying close attention to that particular characteristic of the truck when they look at the slopes and everything involved here.
Yeah, and we're happy to speak with them. Now that the application is in, we've presented it through your town planner. We'd love to talk through those details with them. And we can, if they can't already take it from the plans, we'll give them all of the detail that they could possibly want to understand what we were thinking in terms of making sure that tower works.
Yeah, we very definitely rely on the fire department to look at this plan from their point of view to make sure that, I think it sounds like you've had some discussions with them already.
If I may.
Certainly we do expect that, the across the street, the Pine Street project, the fire department put a lot of energy into reviewing that very carefully to make sure their apparatus could access everywhere. I
Sure.
expect the same here.
Certainly,
I
and
notice we already have an input from the fire department.
Yeah.
Right.
I was just going to mention Fiona was able to set us up on the Thursday afternoon meetings with department heads. So we've had, I think, 2 or 3 different meetings that fire has been involved in.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, but I'm sure, like I said, I expect them to, with more detailed plans available for review, and I'm sure they're pretty good about that. They'll take their time to scrutinize that very carefully.
Certainly. Is this, on the screen, am I looking at feedback from them already?
Yeah, so this is Exhibit 7 on the project page,
Okay.
from our fire department. They did, the comments that were received were, pertain mainly to, the fire hydrants and, modification of the water line to be a continuous loop. Yeah, I wasn't present at all of the meetings with the fire department, but they haven't raised any concerns to me about the truck,
Yeah.
that particular truck.
Yeah, that's just one thing, we will want assurance from them that they have looked at that. And like I said, I expect that they will, if they haven't already satisfied themselves that it's good for them, we will expect them to be on top of things.
Agreed.
Yeah, there's a lot more engineering detail, which I think at this point, I'm quite happy to wait for Graves to, to look that over with their expert eye and tell us what they see and what they think.
Right.
Trust but verify, as they
Yes.
say. Take my word for it, but have you guys
Yeah.
verify?
No, Jeff, he picks out some nitpicky things like you forgot a dash or something in there, or a little notation somewhere in the plans that should be there, or the occasional discrepancy that creeps in through editing something in one place and not updating another place. He's very thorough about it.
I won't take it personally if that's where you're going. It's fine.
I've seen at least one large set of plans where Jeff picked out, I think it was a 1 foot difference in where one sign was located. On 2 different plan sheets.
He's got a good eye,
He does. We're familiar with it.
and it will all
Yes.
it will all end up with the plan at the end will be solid.
Yes.
Are we gonna talk at all about the traffic study today?
Our traffic engineer is not here.
Yeah.
But, we can make that happen at your next meeting.
We'll need to do that. I just noticed a couple of things scanning through what we have for report. One was, I was confused about the way the entrance was described. I think he might have been describing when it was on the other end, because he's talking about it being near the cul-de-sac. And I'm not sure whether,
Yeah, that's probably the traffic study is dated January 2023, so it's somewhat over a year old, and that probably does come from
from the old
the
plan.
earlier version of the plan. Before I forget it, just a kind of a nitpicky thing about the stormwater report. At least in the copy I was reviewing this afternoon off the website, there were some pages missing at the end of section 2 and the beginning of section 3.
Okay, I'll make sure to.
I got the sense that it wasn't anything that I needed to see today, but it's just there seemed to be something missing.
Okay.
There is, the one thing that I'm interested in looking there is that there is a degradation for level of service from E to F on weekday mornings for the left turn from Pine on to Route 30. And that's an issue for me. That intersection is only gonna get worse. I mean, we know this, we know a UPS is gonna contribute to it, and across the street from you is gonna contribute to it considerably too, so I want us to look very carefully at that and what, there's, he says, it's there, F is not what I like. E isn't what I like. But I don't see much in the way of mitigation suggested here.
Yep. Yeah, just a couple of observations on the traffic report. We can get into more detail when we have a chance to discuss with your traffic engineer. We will probably be expecting a peer review on the traffic part of it as well. Yes,
That's forthcoming, yep.
that's forthcoming. Anyway, just a
May I
couple
just
things
ask,
I noted.
Is that coming from Graves, or do you have an independent traffic peer reviewer?
MDM is our peer reviewer.
I know them well.
So as I said, I noticed that one of the things that caught my eye was that it's from January of 2023, which in terms of probably there hasn't been, if you were to update it now, and I would expect our traffic peer reviewer to catch this and tell us if it's significant. In terms of traffic volumes, a year later, there might be a modest change, but probably not a great deal. But one a project in that general area that would contribute traffic to Route 30 was not included in the traffic report because at the time that project wasn't on the radar, and that's at 124 Westboro Road. Mm-hmm. The traffic report didn't account for that, so that that probably is not going to. They did a traffic study, so they have traffic trip generation information from that project, which you probably end up needing to take into account. Another thing that caught my eye is that the traffic analysis, the traffic study did not try to sort of maximize the expected commuter rail traffic out of this development. So in other words, they were a little bit more conservative and said that acknowledged that the commuter rail station was there and that some portion of the population in this development can be expected to use the commuter rail, but they weren't overly optimistic in terms of expecting automobile traffic to be avoided by the use of commuter rail, which is it gives you more of a worst case traffic impact, which I don't disagree with that approach. That while we'd like to think that this location is going to attract a lot of residents who are going to be commuter rail users, we don't want to be overly optimistic about that. And that's the traffic report is consistent with that idea.
Do I recall a 10% allowance in the report on the trips, or was that?
That might have been. I didn't pay attention to the exact percentage on that. I just noticed that
they had enough. Yeah. I think they had a tweaking. We'll hear about that.
I also noticed, and this is just interesting, but neither here nor there, that the trip generation, they estimated 30% of the traffic to go up towards Route 20, 70% of it to go down to Route 30.
Really?
It's that 70%. Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Yep. But it's that 70% that heads down to Route 30,
which causes
and wants to make that left turn.
Yeah, they're all going to be going left.
So that caught my eye too. That the degradation of service there from E to F. But I did not see in the traffic report any discussion of potential mitigations for that.
Exactly.
So I think it would be. I wouldn't be surprised if our traffic peer reviewer would recommend that there be some discussion of potential mitigations instead of just sort of accepting, well, yeah, it gets worse and we're not going to do anything about it. I don't know how much could be done about it, but it should be discussed.
Yeah. But you want to pass on to our reviewer?
Yeah.
Yep. And I believe that the applicant did say in their package that a TDM program would be proposed. So it's on their radar.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, typically in the traffic analysis, we expect to see, whenever there's a predicted degradation of service, we want to see some assessment of potential mitigation. Again, there are limits to what you can realistically do, but the traffic engineers should be able to say, well, these are the kind of things that you could think about doing. And other than that, this is really, the traffic report noted that the 8 Pine Street project is currently stalled. They did a little bit of that are suggesting that because that project is stalled right now, it might not be, we don't know if it's gonna contribute to all the predicted traffic, but they did kind of take into account. And I was just wondering, is that project still stalled as far as we know?
Yes. I haven't been able to get really any recent updates, despite asking.
On the other hand, it is an approved project and the approval lasts forever. So sooner or later, that project may come to fruition.
Right.
And we, if I may, we did select Ty and Bond as our traffic consultant, knowing that they had done 8 Pine Street and were familiar with the town and the town's requirements, so.
Yeah, no, Ty and Bond, I think we've seen a lot of their work, and I really have
One of the bigger.
no hesitation about the work they do.
Excellent.
And MDM on from our side, does a very thorough job of peer reviewing, and I don't recall that in my memory, I don't recall that they've found a lot of fault with Ty and Bond's work. I mean, they always find something. I mean, we're paying the money; they have to find something to talk
The
about.
report always says everything is fine, and then they always.
No, we
What
always.
is the nature of the profession?
Well,
It's always good. To have
we
another
don't
pair
see
of
the
eyes.
report until it says everything's fine. Is that true?
How far along is MDM in their peer review, would you know?
They should be, we received confirmation that they would be able to get it by the next meeting. Yeah, so the 20th, they could do that, yeah. But I believe that was mentioned earlier, talking about getting on a consistent peer review schedule, which we can talk further about, but, and how that factors in.
Yeah, but no, in a lot of things I've done over the years, I've found it always helpful to have another pair of eyes, because another pair of eyes is going to see something that I looked at it and it's there, but I didn't see it.
And I will just say for my own preference as well, and this is our typical practice anyway, is that we're going to have the traffic, applicants traffic study, people coming to talk to us. It's just a lot easier if we have our peer reviewer also able to attend that same meeting. If we can't, we do it in a different meeting, because otherwise we're going to be bringing up one point and then having to talk over it again.
No, we agree. It's much easier if we just give them access to each other and then they work it out and report back to us.
That's everything I noted about when I was looking over the peer reviewed earlier.
Yeah.
Or not the peer, the traffic report.
I do have like 3 or so questions, but they're relatively immaterial. They don't change my vote no matter what they answer, so I'll let everyone else go first and then we can go back to it.
I just had a question on the lottery process. Is that like a cookie cutter, like plan from like the state or some other organization, or does the planning board have any input in what that looks like?
It largely follows the state's regulations that the state support, but it basically follows the state's regs are mostly under the purview of Chapter 40B, which is all about affordable housing. But it spells out a lot of detailed requirements for lottery procedures and preferences, and the mix of unit types and a whole bunch of stuff. That by and large follows the state regs.
If you're asking relative to the location, the physical location of the units within the buildings, is that part of the question?
More just like general kind of language that's put in there. If there was any sort of alterations that we wanted to, like minor alterations, if there was anything, if that was on the table, or if that was pretty much locked in.
Yeah, the whole process of marketing the affordable housing, the affordable units, that's
Outsourced.
that's pretty much cut and dried.
Right.
State process.
And if I may, we have no specific requirements in our bylaw to dictate, how that would look. The minimum, as Vice Chair mentioned, the minimum requirements would be met, and we would EOHLC would confirm that it would meet all their processes. We are not as involved in that piece. It's usually outsourced to a consultant.
And does EA does the state manage the lottery process itself in terms of applicants and
They work with the applicant and with their consultants to do what I believe, and handle that process and the monitoring. They'll handle the monitoring going forward, and then when we get the regulatory agreement eventually, you know, that will outline all that information.
Yeah, I think that's what, I think I'm drifting a little there, but I saw the monitoring, you know, the staff can't do that function.
Yeah.
Town staff can't do that function. So maybe not now, but sometimes, and I'd be interested to understand how all that's gonna work and who's gonna be deciding what and.
Right, typically
Oh, man.
town staff, we don't have the staff capacity.
I am curious about one thing. I noticed down towards the end of this, technical appendices available upon request under separate cover. I just saw, the Route 20 at Centec Boulevard Improvements Plan. I'm just curious about that. I sit on the, Central Mass Regional Planning Commission, chair of the Transportation Planning Committee, so we hear a lot constantly about improvements at at the various parts of Route 20. So I'm curious, what this is and how it fits or doesn't fit with what they're already working with, because, I seem to recall there's a rather large budget along some of that.
Mr. Chair, where are you looking? Where are you looking?
Um,
Put up on in the appendices of the report?
It's, let's see, this is section 8, this is towards, at the end, there's like, different things, section 8 figures, and then the last one, II, someplace down at the bottom,
Okay,
well, close to the
I'll get
bottom.
there.
No, that's before section 1. This thing, yeah, it's not very far in. Yeah, it's about the 4th or 5th page. Technical appendices, table of contents, the end of the table of contents.
Okay,
See it?
so, yeah, I see it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Just to circle back, I was just looking it up to remember the terminology. The bylaw requires for the affordability details, the bylaw basically requires the applicant to designate a monitoring agent. The monitoring agent, there are several different organizations that could be, but the monitoring agent is responsible for all the details of affordability.
right.
You know, isn't that what I was
Yeah, that's
asking about?
They do
Yeah,
the
so-
initial intake for the affordable candidates.
Oh,
And then they
right.
do the annual recertification. If somebody hits the lottery, they're not gonna be an affordable unit anymore. Generally, in these projects, the affordable units and the market rate units are the same. Because
Correct.
when one comes empty, you wanna be able to switch without having a separate area or unit for affordable. That creates all kinds of problems. So there's no difference between the finishes, the amenities, it looks the same.
Yeah, and that's generally true of you know, affordable housing in this state, is that it's pretty
Certainly
much
a rental.
pretty much a requirement that the affordable units be indistinguishable from the market rate units.
Yeah, it's
And
fair.
you take care of that differently in a homeownership project, because people can choose different finishes. But in a rental project, you're not choosing finishes, you're choosing a unit and that's it.
And if they recertify every year, then they could stay in the same unit even if they didn't qualify. It's not like they
Exactly,
have
but
to
then
move
the
out.
next market rate unit will become an
Right.
affordable unit. So that's the way it
You just have to maintain the percentage of,
exactly.
the number of affordable
I
units.
guess one of the other questions I had too was there's been a lot of temporary emergency housing that's been set up in some of the neighboring towns. I'm wondering if that if the state could use that to, like, a lot of those units are temporary, so I'm wondering if this site could be used as a place for them to move some of those people that are in the emergency housing right now.
I don't have an answer specifically to that question. I would say that when as the owner, we would take an application for any and all tenants. Those tenants would have to pass our initial screening. Once they pass that initial screening, then they would go to, in this instance, it'll be SCB Housing, which is the lottery agent. SCB Housing will then run the applications through their process from an income standpoint, assets, et cetera, and they will determine whether or not that prospect qualifies to be a candidate for one of the units. And that's the lottery process. So if they go through that process, then they would, depending on where they were in the lottery, that they would become eligible for a unit. It takes a fair amount of time. And the lottery process typically starts 4 to 6 months prior to the first certificate of occupancy being issued. And the units, as the project is, the certificate of occupancy is issued for the building or a phase of the building, the number of affordable units has to be proportionate to the number of market rate units, which sort of goes to the boy's point earlier that, all the units are not in one wing of one building on one floor. They're dispersed throughout. We propose a preliminary plan. Our consultant, SCB, would say that they believe that this is going to be consistent with the state's requirements, and then ultimately that package goes to the state for to Fiona's point, for their approval on the locations.
There might be a question, and I mean, I don't think any of us knows the answer, but there would be sort of, I think part of your question, Jim, had to do with the state's programs for emergency housing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of orthogonal to the concept of affordable housing as it applies here. Now, the state program might or might not have some leverage to, sort of, I don't know if preempt is the right word, but to sort of, preempt the usual process to use units in developments like this. I haven't heard that the state's program gets into leveraging affordable housing developments as this is.
My understanding is they don't, but I understand it could be wrong.
As much,
There's no mobile vouchers that are being issued here. This is the affordable units are at 80% of area median income. So whatever 100% is, you go down to 80% for household income, everybody's paycheck. And then that's the affordability standard for these units. So 30% of their income can go to shelter costs. That's what the affordable means. It means you're not paying more than 30%. Utilities, in this case, and shelter costs. And it's not consistent with the emergency housing program.
I think from the little bit I can get from the T&G news reports, my impression is that the state just goes and somehow finds places to put people with whatever tools they have. But this is, first of all, it's going to be, what, year and a half to more before anybody's living there, right? So
hopefully
this is right now. We got to solve this before November.
Okay.
Election day.
I know that.
Okay.
We're fine by July 1st.
So Chair,
Right.
I have a question if I may.
Yes,
Just-
sure.
Can you talk a little bit about the dog park? Have you done that before in other projects?
We certainly have, yes.
Okay.
Any specific with regard to the?
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's a novel kind of thing, and I think some towns and cities do offer those, and sometimes they're worried about liability and things like that. And I just wondered if you had done it in other projects and how it's gone over.
We have one. I think we have one at every one of our projects, but one that I can think of.
Nice.
Yeah. On that front, those are kind of where my questions was anyway. Is the dog park intended only for residents of the property?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and that does become a liability.
Yeah, I know down the street there's the one that's Tufts does
Yes.
for everyone in town at least, but yeah. And would I be correct in assuming that these rentals will allow dogs at least as a pet? There's not that many that do overall that I've noticed, but that's what it's a nice amenity.
That's a critical component to, I shouldn't say this because I don't want to be quoted on it, but I want to say the numbers probably around 35 to 40% of our residents are pet owners, whether it's
Yep.
dog or cat, and most of the time it's dog.
Yeah,
And we will have breed restrictions and size restrictions. And,
yeah.
Okay, do we have anything else we need? We have someone who wants to speak.
Talk about stepping in front of a steamroller here. I'm Jim Brown, and along with my wife Carrie Brown, we own Primary Colors next door. And Mr. Lovett, the folks at Claremont have been very good to us in informing us of upcoming events. We had one incident where there were some surveyors wandering around that I asked what they were doing on our property, and that got taken care of for the future. I appreciate the neighborly approach that they've had with this. It's important for me to stand up in front of you folks tonight and say I'm absolutely against the project. Tilting at a windmill here. It's a good project for the town. I recognize that, but to me, it's a break in covenant of why we developed in a light industrial area, and we would not have developed in a neighborhood. And if it was just the blasting in the excavation and the dirt being moved as we're coming out of a good 8 weeks of rock hammering next to us now, I felt like I've been in a MRI machine for the last 2 months, but that's progress, and that's the folks down below that are also a manufacturer that are for 2 months. But if it was just construction project, I'd be against it. But what's left after that construction project is 233 units next to a manufacturing outfit with dogs, kids, families, presumably everyone with a nose that might not like something that they thought they smelled from there's a lot at a manufacturing facility that makes you want to be in an industrial area. And that's why we built there. And again, I recognize all the benefits of the project for the town, and we finally have someone that's going to develop a piece of land that has long been wanted to develop, but I'm concerned. I'm concerned with the blasting. I know that industry has come a long way. Obviously, we talked about, I think the last time we talked about how they're able to blast right up to the edge of gas lines even. So it's going to be important for us to video our building or, get some details about the inside before and after. And there's some things that we need to go through as a company, to be prepared for that. One thing from our standpoint with the town, I'd like to, understand with whom we work when the blasting is slated for, and who can we speak to about how it's going to go and what to expect.
That would be the fire department.
It is, okay, right. Thank you very much. I'm concerned about the value of our building and our property when all is said and done, when there's now a residential unit next door, and for all the uses that building could possibly have in the future, to be next to a 233 unit. I don't know if it'll be more or less valuable, but it's a concern of mine, as ownership changes or whatever happens down the line. So I don't expect to change too many people's minds tonight, but it's important for me to continue to get up and as a business owner to voice my concerns. If all of a sudden I was calling and squeaking later on and I wasn't here on the front end, then it would be a little less teeth in what I'm saying. But I'm just saying, we're there, we're growing, we're a second shift now, we're looking to be a third shift. I don't know if that concerns people as we, the traffic studies and the infrastructure and what's the road like, and we have trucks coming and going on that road. And we've been alone for a long time, so we're kind of spoiled, but
Yeah, those of us who've been around long enough to remember when that park was first designed. It was initially anticipated to be exclusively commercial.
In biomedical way back when.
Biotech in particular
correct.
was what we thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Obviously, things haven't quite worked out the way we initially thought they would. One parcel of land has been found to be just completely unsuitable for development. It's been turned over to the Conservation Commission now. It's permanently open space. This parcel, over however many years, no one's wanted to develop it. Now we have someone who wants to develop it, and true, it's not what we originally thought we would see there. And so I understand where you're coming from that angle, because I've been in town from before that park was created. So I remember what we thought of initially. But here we are, for better or for worse. But I think the board will want to take some of these factors into consideration as best we can. Again, there's a couple of us who remember quite a ways back on that.
Oh, yeah. I still have my hard hat from the groundbreaking when I was chair of the board.
Yeah.
I'll bring that along one of these nights. No, I'm whether or not anybody would like to say no, I think that the zoning that's been adopted doesn't give us that option. Fiona was starting to go down through, if you haven't read it, all of the, we could only do this and this, and not even that. So,
Oh yeah, I recognize the position we're in. I'm just, again, it's important to say your piece and be on record. And
I remember from before.
Yeah, so I
Can
appreciate
I
it.
ask one question as well?
Sure.
So, when you were talking about certain odors, is there a chance for any fine particle pollution or anything that we should be concerned about for the residents that might be living there? Not to get you in
No,
trouble, I
that-
just want to
no,
know if
I-
you think there's a health hazard of any
I would
kind.
no, I wouldn't expect. But if you run an acrylic or something, that it just there are natural smells to the plastics that you're running, and that's.
Sure. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
if you
it's
smell
not-
something, it actually goes into your lungs, so it does affect your health. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
a
we-
medical professional, I know that.
Sure,
You gotta wear
sure.
a certain mask when you're
Sure,
using certain.
and I don't know about the concentration of it and things, but we've had air tests in our place
Yeah.
in the inside, so we feel comfortable with what we're doing there. But
Okay, just want to make sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
And of course, you're a very different company than the one I'm thinking of, but there's been other issues with professional companies in this town that have had smells go for, what was it, a few miles? But have
wasn't
had,
suggesting
have had issues.
Don't think we're worried about that here.
No, I don't, I think it's a very different thing, but it's a,
At least not right now. They've gotten permits from us in the past. Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate your
Thank you.
time.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here, there, with anything for tonight? Apparently not. If you want to request a continuation, we have a form.
our very next meeting is May 20th.
Let me ask you, what do you think we can accomplish by way of peer review on the 20th?
Now that, she's gonna have to tell you.
Yeah, let me check and see.
I mean, there are a lot of incidental things that we can take care of at meetings when we have smaller buckets of time, like photometric plan. We'd like to bring somebody in to talk to you about blasting protocols so that you're up to speed on what the state requires. But that's not necessarily a peer review issue. It is what it is. So we can schedule those things around what we're doing.
Yeah, I think generally speaking, from our perspective, however much time you need before you're ready to come back to us. I mean, we're not going to rush you into something if you're not prepared for it. Now, your key concern right now sounds like the scheduling of when the peer reviews, when our peer review will be completed and forwarded to you, you'll have a chance to review and respond to that. And sort of, I think the peer review cycle, at least the way I'm thinking of it, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would sort of expect that our peer reviewers would complete their reviews. That would be shared with you. You'll have a chance to respond. And really, there's not a lot that we can do productively, I think, until the peer reviews are completed and you've had a chance to review and respond to them.
Keep in mind that town elections are the day after that, on the 21st. The chances are that both of us will still be on the board.
We have no,
Since there's no one running
There's no
against
running.
us. But we are losing him at the end of May, and the select board will be, and we will be selecting a replacement for the next year. So there's some interesting things there. Actually, the question, there'll be a question about this, about the associate here, because it's not a special permit, but it's also not a supermajority. She'll be here one way or the other, but that's even more complicated. So just be aware of that.
Who's your new town council?
Huh?
Who's the new town council?
Harrington Heap. Harrington Heap.
Oh, okay. Is it Chris? Hey?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
We'll have a chat.
and just as far as scheduling the next meeting too, this board has typically held a general practice that if you schedule a public hearing to our next meeting, for example, and then you find out, that Friday before or even the Monday that you're not going to be ready for that meeting, you don't have all the ducks in a row, you can request a continuance via email to staff, and we take it up and usually just approve it for the next meeting or whatever you request until.
Well, I guess my questions would be, do you think Graves will be ready to give us its peer review in a week so that we have a week to respond to it? And the same question for MDM.
The only confirmation, MDM said that they can get it by, when I checked this morning again, and they said they would be able to get it in by the next meeting. I don't know if they'll be able to get it in within the next week, and I doubt Graves Engineering will be able to do it within the next week, because I know that they are also swamped, and they'll probably need a little bit more time.
My intuition would be that we're not likely to see peer reviews completed by the end of this week.
Yes, that's highly
Bill, do you
unlikely.
want to wait until the first June meeting, which is on the first Monday?
It's on the 10th of June.
It's on the 10th.
So that's
And
the
It sounded like you had
It's our joint meeting. That's
Oh,
what
wait.
I'm saying.
Oh,
We're
that's-
Yeah, we have
And,
a large.
offshore.
Yes, we have a joint meeting with the Shrewsbury Select Board, so
Yeah.
we're
In Shrewsbury.
Yeah, it
in
may not be the
Shrewsbury.
10th.
Yeah,
The 24th is our next meeting time. That's the next time we meet.
The next full as of
That's
right now.
June 24th, right?
Yes.
Ooh, that's a long way
Yep.
down.
It does feel.
Could we use the 20th to do the presentations on landscaping, photometrics, and blasting?
That's
I wouldn't object to that. In other words, if you have something that you can productively do with us on the 20th, go for it.
Does that sound like good to you? We gotta cover it anyway.
Sure.
and I'll ask Graves. I'll relay the concern to them and try and get.
I'm
an
gonna put
answer
down May
in writing.
20th here now. I haven't written the day yet.
As they've said, if at the last minute that turns out not to be workable, we can deal with that.
You just
And as-
ask for a continuation.
as far as the board's concerned, too. Generally, the agenda for how you run what you want to present during the meetings is typically up to you. Like if you want to have peer review, we'll generally try to have our peer review present, or at least have enough information to make that go back and forth.
I think
But staff can usually
talking to
deal
her
with
Yeah,
is the way
I'll-
to go.
Yeah.
I'll coordinate.
Are there ever
Fill in the time.
Sure.
So I'll move
there ever
the board
special
approve
meetings?
the continuation request until May 20th, 2024 at 7:30 p.m.
Grant the request.
Grant request.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none.
Mr. Davidson.
Aye.
Mr. Robbins.
Aye.
I vote aye. Mr. Venkatraman.
Aye.
Mr. Hassinger.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. We'll see you then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that brings us to bills.
There's no bills.
No bills.
No bills.
Minutes of previous meetings.
No minutes.
No minutes.
No.
Staff report.
Okay. So, sorry, still closing out before. So, I've been working on a few different things. One thing that I did want to bring up is I've been coordinating with the TA's office on logistics for town meeting, and I was able to confirm that with Evan and the town, the town administrator and the town moderator, that we can offer printed copies of the planning board report in place of having the entire report have to be read.
So nothing verbal or just get up and say, we held a hearing and it's out there.
Yeah, if someone has questions on the article, then a member of the planning board would be able to speak to that. But that's I
The
think.
charter requires everybody to have a representative
Yes.
present to answer questions, whether or not anyone else but me know, and Dave knows that.
But I think that that's the extent of the speaking that we have to do.
Yeah, okay.
And we'll provide
Well,
copies.
I like hearing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was kind of nice. And as as folks may or may not be aware, we need to have. I've been coordinating with the town moderator to make sure that we have a mobile mic for the citizens petition that's underway, and he's the gentleman, Mr. Fitzgerald, who's presented to us in the past about the for-profit clinics under 5,000 gross square feet. He's ready and prepped and knows what he's supposed to say when he's supposed to say it, and that's all coordinated. So I think in terms of town meeting prep, we're good. Don and I have been chatting, and those are the only outlying issues that I can think of. If the board thinks of anything else and wants me to double check, let me know.
Yep.
But it is coming up.
We don't have anything like we had last fall.
Thank God. Like, yeah, that was a journey. So other than that, just really it's been a lot. It's spring is here. It's a very busy time. A lot of inquiries from the public about what can and cannot be done in certain parcels of land. A lot of coordination about some of these larger scale projects, which we're seeing. We have 2 in front of us. Another one coming, as we discussed earlier. We have our master plan working group meetings that are continuing to occur, and we're getting really close to closing out our objectives, goals, and findings from that group. So this is they had their last meeting this evening, and I'll be able to provide a report on what was said and what was agreed upon at that time. I've been doing, I think I mentioned this last time, but I've been doing some construction walkthroughs of projects and trying to get a little bit more diligent about, following up with folks, making sure that we're really keeping like a very, very close eye on what's going on. And Jeff and I, I have a laundry list with Jeff that we need to go out and check, but we were able to do a pretty comprehensive review of the needs for the Bull Meadow subdivision and the Grafton Hill subdivision. Both are coming along nicely, and there's a punch list of like some minor things that they need to address. They both have some requirements from the Conservation Commission. Bull Meadow needs to go through 2 growing seasons for their replication, so they're going to be a while before they come to town meeting. But for acceptance of the road, but just as an update, those were the 2 most recent walkthroughs I've done. I've been helping with the Affordable Housing Trust with coordinating the 25 Worcester Street project, as well as helping them, answering questions that they have about 17 and 27 Upton, which will be coming before us soon. In addition, continuing to do, help the TA's office with the comment page for upcoming 40B projects, namely Snow Road and requests for inclusion and things of that nature. I'll make sure to request an updated SHI with what our current percentage for the board, so that we have it, because that did come up this evening. We received an earmark of $125,000 through the Chapter 268 bill, so we have so what we found out about it, with a very short window of time to get feedback, but what we're planning to do is use those for economic and infrastructure improvements from toward the North Street sidewalk project, and then that will release some funding from the pool, the local ARPA money pool that's dedicated to sidewalks, and it'll go back to economic development. So that's a very roundabout way of saying the state earmark will go to North Street, but that'll free us up to do some other work with, my focus is what's in our local rapid recovery plan, which is what we've discussed, Mill Street or Whitney Park rather, the sidewalk connections between that park and Perry Hill, and just our Wi-Fi hotspots project, et cetera, et cetera. So we have plenty to spend the money on, but the North Street sidewalks project will be essentially done by the end of the summer, and we have a deadline that we need to spend the money by. So that's perfect way to utilize that funding. We have a meeting tomorrow evening with the select board to discuss our open space partial prioritization project. Dave, and I believe, Dave, you'll be attending. You don't have to, but
I'll be there.
Yes, yeah, I figured. So Dave and I will be in attendance to speak to the project, answer any questions that the select board may have before they approve it. We did receive some feedback from the Grafton Land Trust about some potential things to consider going forward in terms of the criteria, and we thought it would be most effective to kind of keep a list of items of things, because as people utilize the tool, people are going to have a series of comments, things that they see. So we're making sure to track that information, and we can, examine updating it periodically. If some of the suggestions are relatively minor, but the overall the project is really like a great project. We're happy that we're at the finish line, and CMRPC did a really wonderful job. So happy with that. Also on the agenda tomorrow night, the select board meeting, is the contract approval for the design and permitting work for the Fisherville Dam. So that is something that we'll need to really hit the ground running with. We got an EEA grant. I secured an extension of that grant, so we, time wise we're okay, but we need to really start hitting the ground running with tie and bond after that's signed. So we'll probably have a kickoff meeting, and I can update the board about that as well. Sorry, I'm almost done. So I submitted I've been hearing from folks, business owners, and the common members of the public, etc., about the need to kind of understand parking and traffic at the common. So I found a study that was done in 2012, but obviously extremely outdated at this point. So I submitted what's called an expression of interest to the community one-stop portal to see what funding, if any, would be available for that. So I'm happy to continue to work on that. But I guess I wanted the board's feedback about, if you believe that there's a need to assess that.
Yeah,
I'll
say my thought process is when there are events on the common or near the common, there's generally an issue finding good parking.
Mm-hmm.
That said, I don't know what there is anything a study would tell us that we don't already know.
Yeah.
That's the issue I have.
Yeah, it was, I think that there's been a lot of conversation about what's going on at 3 Worcester Street, and
as of right now, the select board has voted to stripe the parking lot and make it actually available for parking. I think it's after 3 p.m. But beyond that, there's not currently a expectation that old fire station will be removed, and the only potential thing I know of that might add more parking is the project I believe GSX is in charge of on Upton Street, the old DPW.
Yeah, 1727 Upton.
Yeah.
Yes.
There will be parking available. They obviously have to have a lot of parking there. We'll be looking at that project in 2 weeks.
Yep.
And there is some hope that some of that parking may be available for events around the common. But I don't know, I don't know if that's been studied in adequate detail.
I think traffic's a much bigger issue than parking.
I would be,
Traffic is
I think,
Yeah.
right,
horrendous.
what I would most like having looked at around the common is traffic and safety. I think, there's, this may be far-fetched, but I'm thinking that maybe some of the road configuration around the common maybe needs to be altered.
Yes.
There are too many roads there, too many different ways that people can travel, and I've heard stories about some of the traffic issues. So, yeah, I think, if you could look at the common and an area around the common, you could look for additional parking opportunities. I wouldn't expect you to find much. I would like to see that area, the common. I mean, obviously, I think we all would like to preserve the common itself,
Right.
in its current state, and some of the green areas around the common. But if a study could be made to sort of look at the configuration of roads around there and maybe identify some practical changes that can be made to improve safety.
At the very least, that crosswalk right in front where the flashing lights are now, that crosswalk needs to be moved down past there, because when people are walking, the traffic stops right in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
And then people are coming, that crosswalk is just, it's really dangerous. It's gotta be moved
When
away from the intersection.
I think there was a point that I've been in town that wasn't a marked crossing there, and people would still just cross at that corner anyway.
Yeah, no, it's a difficult situation. But my long thing that no one else except me thinks is a good idea, never has. One person, I think, once bought into it. Look at making the common
A roundabout.
a large roundabout.
We need a roundabout.
There's only one direction to go around. This would require some serious, sketching out. Roads and whatnot would change, but you get rid of a lot of the problem you're talking about by doing that. The problem, the real traffic problem there is from that crosswalk light to the corner of Upton Street in front of the inn. The cars going that way are the conflict. What you're talking about, all of it is there. If the traffic flows around, you look at how the flow works. It would take some seriously good engineering to make it work and be anything like acceptable. But I may live long enough to get that looked at. I may.
That I think is at least one of the possible alternatives I had in mind, and what I was suggesting is that it's not looking at.
It didn't sound like you were going that far.
I wasn't specific about what kinds of alterations might come out of a study like that.
I don't think anybody.
That would have to be one of the alternatives considered.
I don't think anybody would look at that unless I insisted. I mean, everybody says, huh?
Yeah.
No way.
Alternate suggestions I've heard float around from people is traffic lights, but I also have heard entirely other people say there is no way we're putting traffic lights on the common. It's a historic district, and
no way.
No way we're going to put traffic lights on the common.
Traffic
lights.
Well, that I really don't want to see a light at the place you're talking about, which is the place we
would want it.
Yeah, that could be problematic too.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
it's complex.
I'm not at all sure the historic district can say what yay or nay, but
look at what we have. Look at the problems we have. Look at all conceivably possible solutions. Yeah, and that has to be one of the possible solutions. I'm not afraid to try to look at everything. Look at not just a few tweaks around it, or putting curbs or crosswalks in. Let's just see what we can do about rethinking how traffic flows around that common.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think is it Barry? I asked and someone told me well, one of the comments, one of the large comments, at least does something close to that, out west of Worcester,
Okay.
came up. Okay, is that enough of that?
Yeah.
Is there anything on correspondence?
Nothing that.
Nothing
yeah.
caught my eye.
Is there anything on reports from planning board representatives on town committees and CMRPC?
I have nothing.
I got a no over there too. Okay. In that case, is there anything else may lawfully come before us?
I think a motion to adjourn could lawfully become before us, and I so move.
I guess I'll second. I've kind of asked to move us to past 10, but I'll second that.
You can stay here.
I don't think that motion would pass.
I don't think so either.
That's not debatable. Roll call.
Mr. Davidson.
Aye.
Mr. Robbins.
Aye.
I vote aye. Mr. Veckatraman.
Aye.
And Mr. Hassinger.
I vote aye. The motion is unanimous. We are adjourned.